The uncertainty over what will happen after the 31st of December is putting severe pressure on the business sector in Britain. And as Neil O'Reilly reports, small firms are especially vulnerable.
Across Britain, businesses big and small are braced for change, deal or no deal. They're currently operating under EU rules. However, that will change when the transition period ends on January the 1st. But with just weeks to go, there are still more questions than answers, particularly on the question of no deal.
The amount of tax, like if it's like a 30% tax on some cheese, you know, is like, will the people still gonna be afford it? And especially after COVID, like you can tell, like, well, the rich are still rich and the poor are even more poor. So the trade, we don't know how it's gonna be, you know, and like if the pound go down, gonna affect like the buying because we're buying in euro. So yeah, there is a risk that we might close down, yeah.
Even if a post-Brexit trade accord is struck at this late stage, industry and agriculture are in for a bumpy ride in the coming months. Farmers say it's extremely difficult to plan beyond the short term.
We know about the paperwork, we know about the extra cost, we know about the delays at the ports, but it's the things we don't know about that will probably do the most damage. But there could be so many things. A shortage of lorry drivers, you know, could paralyse the economy. There's so many things that could go wrong, but we just don't know.
Among the unknowns, the impact of losing EU farm subsidies. The UK is replacing them with its own scheme, but whether individual farmers will be better or worse off is far from clear. Neil O'Reilly, Euronews.
Let's go over to Glasgow in Scotland now, where we can speak to William Bain, who's an advisor for the British Retail Consortium. Thanks very much for speaking with us here on Euronews. In that report, we were looking at smaller businesses, but regardless of the size of the retail outfit, if they are trading with the EU, they've got some huge fundamental changes coming down the line, don't they?
That's right, Oliver. I mean, leaving the customs union and the single market has quite profound implications for supply chains. It is going to mean additional checks, additional red tape. That is unavoidable, whether there's a trade deal or not. It is going to make the sourcing and supply chains less efficient than we've seen for the last 50 years. But retailers are doing their best. They're adjusting to the new customs rules, the new VAT rules, the new rules on checks on meat and other animal products. But even given those preparations, there are still concerns that the queues and delays might be very large indeed in the first weeks in January.
And we've already seen that starting to happen, not only in the UK around Kent, but also on the French side in Calais. Huge tailbacks of lorries coming into the country, warnings that there might be a shortage of fresh food and veg if there is a no deal. Your organisation on Sunday warning shoppers not to stockpile. So just how concerned are you that there's going to be a rush on the shops?
Well, there needn't be. I mean, there will be more than enough food for everyone. The issue is really not in terms of sort of canned products or long life products. It's about chilled products. It's about fresh fruits, fresh vegetables. If there are large delays in the first weeks in January, we may see some delays. Maybe the shelves not being as fully stocked 24/7 as people become used to. But we will not run short overall of food. And I think the hope is that after the first few weeks in January, things might get better in terms of how the border controls will operate and how smoothly they will run.
Do you think that could have been avoided, that scenario could have been completely discounted if the UK government had entered these negotiations in a different frame set, a different mind frame?
Well, the choice that they made was for this type of basic free trade agreement. That was a result of the election that they won a year ago last December. So it was pretty clear from the Prime Minister's speech in February that he was not going to perhaps take the view that most of business would have liked, which would have been for a deal with more alignment, fewer checks. But we've had to work with the reality, which is that we are going to face checks. We have to minimise them, make them as efficient as we can. But I think the key thing that we can do in the coming days is to get a deal that avoids tariffs. Tariffs would put £3 billion in new taxes on food imports in the UK. They would drive up the cost of goods for consumers. And we must think about, the interests of consumers in a COVID-racked economy across Europe and avoid a new tariff war across the European continent.
Because we've already seen retailers in the UK, they've been hard hit by COVID-19, now potentially with Brexit. How bleak could it get for retailers if these two issues converge to the worst possible scenario?
It's a worrying time. It could become a perfect storm. There is pent-up consumer demand. I think you'll see that in terms of the figures for Q4 and the Christmas sales. But clearly for many retailers for whom 2020 has been a struggle to stay alive, having tariffs as the opening gambit of 2021 could be the final straw for many. And that's why we need to keep our eyes on the prize in the next few days and get a deal that doesn't bring back tariffs to trade between the UK and the rest of the EU in terms of goods. Tariffs that we haven't seen for 50 years.
William Bain joining us here from the British Retail Consortium. Thank you very much indeed.